Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back with another review for Bridgerton season 3. Now, this is the finale. So I'm going to try to take my time with this episode, as long as my battery doesn't die on me, and give this what it deserves. Because I have not been up here for a while to do a Bridgerton review. I apologize. Life has been lifing. I have been busy, but I'm here and hopefully you are too. So go ahead and give me that like button, hit that thumbs up button as we begin. So we left off with Colin and Penelope being married, but with him being upset because she is not willing to give up Whistledown. So it's only the day after their wedding, and it's obvious that Colin is upset because he still is not in their bedroom. He spent the night on the couch. Now, I don't know how their rooms are arranged. I don't know if they have other bedrooms somewhere else, but he's not sleeping in another room. Maybe he doesn't want the staff of the household to know. Instead, he's sleeping on the couch because you see a pillow and you see a blanket there. Despite being newlyweds, this is what he decided to do. He tells Penelope that he's going to head to the Bridgerton house for breakfast. And I'm instantly annoyed because you are supposedly supposed to be in love with this woman, and yet you're not willing to eat breakfast with her. Penelope lets him know that her mother is coming, but he says he wishes to leave despite knowing that. So he walks out and she is left to deal with her mom. So she's going to change. She's told somebody's waiting for her in the drawing room. She comes to the drawing room thinking that she's meeting her mother, but it's not her mom. You can understand the shock that she must be feeling when the day after her wedding, she walks into her drawing room to find Cressida, the wannabe Lady Whistledown, standing there. I knew immediately before Cressida even opened her mouth that she was gonna piss me off, and piss me off she did. But you all tell me who you were siding with on this. So she says, "Good morning. I trust you had a happy wedding night. I am simply paying a visit to the esteemed Lady Whistledown. I know your secret." Penelope is like, "Look, whatever you think you know or whatever you know, you're incorrect. And I just want you to leave." And Cressida says a whole bunch of things. Amongst them, she says, "It makes perfect sense. No one would ever suspect you, as you are so very forgettable. That look is enjoyable. Shame I can't stay longer to savor it, seeing as how I'm under lock and key." So she is taking pleasure in getting under Penelope's skin and insulting her. Not just insulting her, but insulting her in her own home. Long story short, she knows that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, and she's demanding to receive £10,000 from her in order to keep her secret, as well as be able to go ahead and live her life abroad. Now, during her time of letting her know this, Penelope's telling her, nobody's going to believe you. Nobody's going to believe what you have to say. And she's like, people will believe me. And right when she says that, Lady Featherington walks in, and unfortunately, Cressida is able to test out her theory, and she uses Lady Featherington to prove to Penelope how easily the town is going to believe what she has to say. She says, "Lady Featherington, Penelope and I were just discussing whether or not I am to be believed. Let's find out." So as she's talking, you hear the music building and things of that nature. She says, "Think of your daughter's love of the written word, and think of how she is so easily overlooked, allowing her to disappear for great periods of time. And think of how all those she views as enemies end up humiliated in print. And then ask yourself how it took you this long to realize she is the true Lady Whistledown." She turns to Penelope and says, "You will pay me my sum, or I will reveal the truth to the entire town. Do enjoy your morning, ladies." And she leaves. And it works because she has said all of this, and we witness for the first time that Lady Featherington is processing the fact that this is truly her daughter. We see her go from shock to hurt to anger all in a matter of seconds. And she's telling her, tell me it's not true. Penelope says, for once, Cressida does not lie. Lady Featherington says, at every ball, always, there is an hour at which you disappear. I thought it was because your social manners run dry at a point, but now I realize what a fool I have been. All the terrible things that you have written about your sisters, about me, about yourself. I have fought with every tool at my disposal to claw us out of ruin time and time again. And yet, under my own roof, my own blood has been sowing the seeds of our ruin all along. How could you, Penelope? And I said, I forgot some of the things that Penelope wrote about her mom. But she was right, and she had every right to say how she felt about that situation. She realizes, Lady Featherington does, or Portia, as you may hear me call her, that she was killing herself and doing all these different things to keep her family afloat, to keep her family from being thrown out and from losing their standing and from losing their title. Meanwhile, Penelope was just focused on herself. So she is like, look, we got to go back to what matters, which is their image. She demands her daughter to keep this blackmail situation a secret from Colin and not tell him, because he, based on this information alone, still can end the marriage by an annulment. And I never thought that that was a possibility, but it still goes to show that even though Colin isn't doing what we would want him to do and acting the way that we would want him to act, that there's a part of him that still loves and cares about her, because he could have very easily annulled it. But Penelope is like, no, she's done with the lies. She can afford this stuff, so her paying it is not a problem. But she's struggling with the principle of it because she didn't work this hard to just have it taken away. We transition to the palace, where we see Lady Danbury and the Queen playing chess while discussing Lady Whistledown's situation and how it relates to the Bridgertons. The Queen knows that Lady Danbury is fond of the Bridgertons and feels like the Bridgertons have something to do with it, whereas Lady Danbury doesn't, and is trying to remind her to focus on what matters. The Queen is focused on winning, but Lady Danbury wants her to focus on what Whistledown is saying and what Whistledown is doing, because even though the Queen is trying to win, it's obvious that Whistledown is not trying to beat the Queen, but she's trying to stay relevant, and that if she stays relevant, the game can still continue between the Queen and her. She even points out how, you may have been in a similar situation when you were younger, which goes to show that Lady Danbury knows more than what Lady Danbury puts on. I do believe what Lady Danbury said later on in the end, which is she kind of figured out who it was, but we'll get to it and you all will tell me what you think. This talk, in my opinion, changes the course of what happens to Penelope. What happens to Penelope later on. So we see the Featherington sisters, and at this point, they're trying to find ways to be relevant, because they know that once they become pregnant and they start to show, that they're not going to be able to be in attendance and things like that nature at the ball, because that's not what they do. So they talk about how they want to host a ball. They want gold and purple and orange and bugs and all these other things. We later see them show up at their mother's house, telling her that they are entitled to some of the additional funds because she barely spent any money on their weddings, whereas she spent so much on Penelope's. And her mom says that, unlike you all, the Bridgertons come from money. So it's going to serve us in the long run. And you guys need to go somewhere because I'm expecting someone. But it's not that she was expecting someone. It's that she had Penelope and them over at her house. But we'll talk about that later. So we see Lady Bridgerton out with John and Francesca, trying not to let the rumors affect them. They decide that they do want their wedding to be soon, but they don't want it to be large. Francesca lets her mother also know that after the wedding that she will be leaving to go to Scotland. I said, okay, this is yet another Bridgerton leaving. Like, they just keep getting married and leaving. Eloise and Colin are at the Bridgertons when Penelope and her mother show up. They end up talking, telling Colin and Eloise exactly what Cressida is trying to do with the blackmailing situation. Colin is worried about how this may harm their families and their names, while Penelope is focused on not harming their families as well as keeping her name. The moment that she tells them what's going on, everyone else is sharing their opinion about the situation, but they're not really listening to her because all she wants to do is pay the money, which is just goes back to why she started Whistledown in the first place, because she wanted to be heard. And they're making her feel like she's being pushed back into a corner. She lets it be known that she can afford to pay her. And they seem shocked by this, but she's been writing for several seasons. So, of course, at this point, she has that money. Colin isn't having it, though. He says, no one blackmails my wife. And despite, what Penelope wishes, which is to pay Cressida off, he's going to handle it. Most people might have been extremely excited by this, but I knew that this wasn't going to make the situation better. I had a feeling it was going to make it worse, and it did. So he goes to Cressida's home. He speaks with her. He says, I take it your mother doesn't know about you blackmailing my wife. And she says, I no longer trust anyone but myself, because she thought that her mother had her back in some things, but her mother too has shown that she's going to protect herself. She rather protect herself and have her child go away to Wales, I believe it is, or wherever it is, I can't remember, than have to be kicked out along with her. He says that must feel terribly lonely. I have known what it's like to be truly alone when I'm off on my travels. Cressida is like, oh, okay, poor Mr. Bridgerton, traveling the continent, seeing the great sights of the world as only a man can do. He says, I found myself yearning to hear word from home. It felt as if everyone was busy with their lives without the need for me in them. So I attempted to pardon myself into a man with no needs of his own. She says, Mr. Bridgerton, I'm confused. It seems like you have come for me to pay you sympathy, but I am the one who is meant to be paid. In other words, you're over here telling me your sob story, but I don't feel sorry for you. Show me the money or let me know what the plan is. He says, I can understand why you might hate Whistledown. Her words are cutting and sharp, and still her readers are willing to pay to read about themselves week after week. She says, you do not sound as if you hate Whistledown. You sound as if you're jealous of her, and he does. I said, and there you have it. He's jealous. Now, whether or not he wants to admit it right then, he's not, but he is. He says, no, I am not. My point is, there is Whistledown, and then there is Penelope, who has experienced a kind of loneliness surely neither of us can fathom. Imagine being so ignored you feel invisible. It does not excuse what she has done, but perhaps it is understandable that at times her column has reflected the cruelty around her, a cruelty I imagine you have felt too. She feels remorse, and she didn't savage you in her latest column. If Penelope can find grace for you, don't you see that the town can forgive you as well? And surely your father will welcome you back to London when all of this, passes. A family's love is enduring. And it's clear that Colin has not been paying attention, because loving is not a word that I would use to describe her family, nor would she. She said, you take for granted that you will always have your family's support. We are not the same, Mr. Bridgerton, and we never will be. She starts to walk out, and she lets him know that I have a printer's apprentice who is willing to collaborate the truth just for the pleasure of meeting the real Lady Whistledown. Pay me the following morning, or I will tell everyone. In fact, reflecting upon the lack of her support that I shall have in the future, perhaps I'm not asking enough for you. The more that he talks, the more that he shows that he's still processing his own feelings. Cressida is not feeling what he's saying because despite him trying to relate to her, he cannot. After all, he comes from money. He is a man, and him being a man alone gives him privileges that she'll never have. So we see Eloise and Penelope talking. They're at Lady Featherington's house. Eloise admits that she did befriend Cressida at first to bother Penelope. Colin returns, telling Eloise and Penelope that she has now doubled her asking price. She wants £20,000, and she also wants her reputation restored. Colin decides that he can come up with some type of story to tell Benedict in order to get the funds, since Benedict is currently running things while Antony is gone. But Benedict is busy at this point having a threesome with Tilly and Paul, but we'll get to it. So Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton hang out. They're having drinks. She lets her know that she'll have her support and her brother's support as well while Francesca is gone, if Violet's okay with that. Not that, Violet needs permission, because she certainly never asked for permission. And you have to watch Queen Charlotte to really understand that, which eventually, I don't know when, but I will be reviewing Queen Charlotte. With that being said, you have to watch Queen Charlotte to get this situation here, because what it really is that on Queen Charlotte, you realize that at some point, Lady Danbury and Violet, or Lady Bridgerton's father, were involved with one another. So the two ladies are saying everything without saying anything, and they both agree that both Violet's dad and Lady Danbury's brother are good men, and that they each have been good friends to each other. So nothing else needs to be said in regards to those situations. Lady Danbury then adds that, whatever happens between her brother and Lady Bridgerton, that she will always choose Lady Bridgerton over her brother. They laugh about it, but it just goes to show you how much they care about each other and how deep their friendship is. It's a new day. Penelope lets Colin know that she's going to go ahead and head to her mother's house, and then she'll meet him at the house for Francesca's wedding ceremony. After she leaves, you see Colin going through the desk drawer where he finds letters from Penelope, and we see him smiling as he's reading them. At Lady Featherington's, she is confronted by the solicitor, the lawyer, who has found proof of Lady Featherington's lies. He said that he looked into her Aunt Petunia and her money situation. He questioned various neighbors and found out that Aunt Petunia, this aunt that supposedly got all this money and gave the inheritance to them, is actually poor and owes a lot of people money. So he's reporting Lady Featherington to the royal authorities, threatening to give their title to a different family. This is when we see Penelope walk in, and Penelope finds out that her mom has been lying, that her aunt's fortune was a lie to cover up the fact that she's actually taken money from Jack Featherington, the money that he stole from the town. They go back and forth about it. Penelope feels like she is whistled down, yes, but she was doing it to protect herself. And Lady Featherington feels like she was doing what she did to protect her family. But at some point, as they're going back and forth, Penelope realizes that they have more in common than even she thought. Say it whatever way you want to say it. In my opinion, Lady Featherington is a thief. I get that she did this to save her family because in her mind she had no other choice. But that doesn't change the fact that she was willing to go to whatever ends to get this money. Now, whether she's right or wrong, let me know down below. But I think that it's something to consider to show you how deep each one of them were willing to go to do what they needed to do. She says to her daughter that she never knew a woman was capable of more, that she always thought it had to be through a man. And through Penelope, she is seeing it, and she's impressed at the amount of power that her daughter has gained, basically through her pen and what she has done. She says that Lady Whistledown now is going to have to write about our disgrace when I'm exposed. And Penelope's like, Lady Whistledown will write whatever I want her to write. Penelope suddenly gets it. And for the first time, we see the both of them show empathy towards one another. Portia says, we have to vow to do better and make changes. It's a touching scene between the two of them because I feel like we don't get a lot of these scenes with them, but when we do, you can tell that even though we may not agree with the way Lady Featherington goes about things, she does love her daughters. So it's wedding time. And Francesca is getting ready with Lady Bridgerton. She tells her the story of how when she first met Edmund, she couldn't even get her name out. Keep that in mind because we see this happen 2 other times during this episode, but it's not just with Lady Bridgerton. She stumbled over her words because she was so taken by him. She has always thought that, this was the way for everyone, but Francesca has taught her that there's beauty in the slow, quiet approach. A slow love is just as special, she says. She knows her daughter will not only find herself in marriage, but also in Scotland. And she's happy for her. We see the wedding. Penelope attends, as well as the Bridgerton family, the Mondridges, and Danbury and her brother. It's very small, very intimate. Eloise notices her mom and Lord Anderson. He asks for a dance at the next ball. And this is when we get to see Lady Bridgerton stumble over her words just to say yes, the same way she described how she would struggle with talking with Edmund. John then gives a toast. He says, a toast, if I may, to my beautiful wife. I have not the words to express my adoration, a fact for which I am sure you must be grateful, as I know you are loath to be made the center of attention for too long. So instead, I shall offer a few humble words to your family, especially your mother. Lady Bridgerton, I see your openness reflected in Benedict, your charm in Colin, your wisdom in Eloise, and a brightness you have instilled in both Gregory and Hyacinth. In this moment, when I feel so much gratitude for my new wife, I feel it in equal measure for the remarkable woman who raised her. I thank you, all of you, from the bottom of my heart. I said, oh my goodness. John does not say a lot, but when he speaks, he speaks. And I wish we got to see more of him and more of them, because moments like this are what matters, are what makes the series for me. And the way that they ended this situation with the two of them, I'm not quite sure how this marriage is going to go, but we'll get to it. So we see Lady Bridgerton and Francesca, because Francesca's like, Mom, play the piano with me. And as they're playing the piano, Lady Bridgerton is awful. She's hitting all the wrong chords, but they're laughing and they're enjoying it. And when they're done, they embrace each other. You can see and feel the love. Despite how bad she's playing, they're enjoying each other. Penelope pulls her husband to the side and lets him know that she is watching this situation and she has to take matters into her own hands from now on. She did this and she'll fix it. She says, I cannot ask you to lie to your brother on my behalf. Your family, the one you have so kindly shared with me, they are too good, too warm and wonderful to deceive or cheat in any way. I will not let my lies spread any further than they already have. And he's like, then how am I meant to help you? Because he thinks he always has to rescue her. She says, by loving me. You've given me so much already. You've taught me how to hold my own. You have shown me I am capable of pleasure beyond imagination. But it is not what you do for me that makes me love you. It is your kindness, your empathy, how much you care. Just being you is enough, Colin. I do not need you to save me. I just need you to stand by me, to hold me, to kiss me. He says, I want very much so to do those things. And she says, and what restrains you? Basically, like, you say you want to do it, so do it. I'm telling you, this is what I need you to do. Do it. He says, I do not know, but I do know that Miss Culper still hangs over us. And as long as you live this secret, there will always be something between us. She says, I know. Perhaps the key is what you are saying. This is when we see Penelope sit down and she is writing. And we find out that Penelope writes a letter to Queen Charlotte and one to Violet, admitting that she is Lady Whistledown. She then gives Varley a lot of her Whistledown money to use for her sister's ball to do whatever they need to do in throwing that ball. As this is going on, we're back at Cressida's house where we see her Aunt Joan, and her Aunt Joan is not impressed by Cressida and says she's too warm. It's too warm in this house. Meaning, like, they want her to tone it down. I feel bad for Cressida in some aspects, but then I'm like, okay, you kind of did this to yourself. She's like, go ahead and look at me because I'm not leaving with you anyways. Because she's still thinking and still wanting to get that money. We see Benedict. He's back at Lady Arnold's home. He thinks that Paul is there so they can do some more threesome things. We saw them do that like a couple of times throughout the episode. But she's ready to make things more serious. She admits that when Paul was there, she found herself being jealous of the two of them and their interaction, and that she's actually starting to fall for him. That she wasn't sure that she'd ever feel like she wanted to commit to a person again, to commit to a person again, but he's allowed her to see that she does. He thanks her for opening up his mind, and he's like, I feel free, and this is a feeling that I just don't want to lose yet. She respects his feelings. You can tell she's a little disappointed, but she lets him, like, even all of this and the fun that you're having in doing this, it can get to the point where it gets old. Benedict ends up leaving, runs into Eloise on the swings. We know how much the two of them love sharing their swing talks. She says that she's restless and frustrated with who she currently is, and she kind of wants his help on his opinion on it, but all he can do is be there for her by listening to her. He tells her that he doesn't know much, but one thing that he does know is that they have to have more chats like that. It's time for the ball. It's a gorgeous ball. Varley did her thing and she pulled it off because the request with the bugs and the colors and all those things sound crazy, but it looked beautiful. When Lady Featherington enters the room, she realizes that Penelope paid for this. But Penelope isn't saying she did. Instead, she's giving her mom the credit, which makes things easier, and it eases the tension between her mom and her, as well as her other sisters. All is well. Party looks great until the queen arrives. The queen comes in, stops everything, tells the 8-musician quartet to stop playing. She informs the people that Lady Whistledown wrote her, asking if she can publicly plead her case for mercy. She then turns the floor over to the scribe herself, and she points to Penelope. And you can hear a gasp. The people are actually shocked. And then Penelope proves why she is who she is, why she is the true Lady Whistledown. Penelope has went from being in the corner to now literally being in the center of the floor. She says, hello all, or should I say, dearest gentle readers. I know it's no laughing matter what I have done. In the beginning, I never thought anyone would take my writing seriously. Why should they? No one has ever taken any part of me seriously. I only realize now how common that feeling must be, to be a young lady to whom no one listens. I wrote about all of you because I was captivated by you, living your lives so out in the open. And in writing about all of you, I suddenly felt as if I had a life. I had power. And for anyone in this room who has ever had a taste of that, they should know it can be intoxicating. But I was careless with that power. It was easy to cast aspirations from the shadows where I could not be found. But I see now how much courage it takes to live a life out in the open, to honor one's weaknesses publicly for all to see, and to know, regardless of the outcome, one always has worth. All of us talk. We gossip. Gossip is information. It forges bonds, especially for those of us who are told so little. But I can no longer conceal the biggest piece of information I have: my identity. That is why I am so very grateful to our queen for forcing me out of the shadows with her most cunning scheme. Because you gotta give a queen credit. If you're trying to stay on her good side and get ahead of this, you gotta give her credit, which goes to show you how smart she was even in doing this. If she affords me the chance to continue, I mean to aim my quill more responsibly. That is my repentance and my plea. The queen then walks up and she says, she seems humbled, but we will be watching that she remains so. And then she looks at her and she says, what is life without a little gossip? Penelope started this series ignored, where she was in the corner up against the wall. Nobody wanted to sign her dance card. Nobody wanted to play her. Her mother had her in these ugly yellows and colors that do not go with her beautiful red hair. They kind of wash her out. And here she is now, no longer the wallflower. She's literally in the center of the room, all eyes on her, and that lovely shade of blue, green, emerald, I don't know what we'll call it, is gorgeous. And her mom kind of tried to, dress like her too. But she has literally turned into a butterfly. The plan works, and as the queen leaves, you hear her sister say, release the bugs, and butterflies fly out. And I am not missing the symbolism in that, because Penelope has literally transformed before our eyes. As the queen walks out, they're released, and Lady Danbury approaches Penelope. She says, you cannot tolerate a lie. She says, your last column. Her Majesty was close when she assumed Whistledown was a Bridgerton protecting their own. But I know the family well enough to know it was not one of them. There is only one person who loves the Bridgertons more than I. And I said, the fact that one person loves them more than me, which shows you that both of these women have a certain level of love for the Bridgerton family. And Lady Danbury saw something in Penelope, and I think that she knew. You all tell me what you think. She says, you knew it was me? Lady Danbury says, I suspected. You are not the only lady of the town who can keep a secret. I look forward to your next edition. And she walks off. Penelope says Lady Featherington can tell the lawyer that the money that she's been using is actually not from Aunt Petunia, but it's from Whistledown. It's money that she made. That way they can keep whatever money is left, as well as the title to the Featheringtons. She thanks her. It's cute. She says, remember, we got to do better this time. Okay. We see Colin approach Penelope. He's looking at her like he's so in awe of her. She tells him that even though the town right now seems to be taking everything okay, they can lash out behind their backs or want to retaliate in the future. And for right now, the queen is happy, but there's no guarantee that she may not change her mind. So if he wants to get an annulment, it's okay. He says, Pen, ever since I found out you are Whistledown, I have done everything I can to try to separate you from her. But the other day I went back and read all of the letters you have sent me. Your letters have always been the ones I am most eager to read, and I realized you are her. You have always had one voice. There is no separating you from Whistledown, which I said, okay, he finally gets it. This is what we've been waiting on, Colin. After seeing you speak today, I would not want to, because forgive me, but that was bloody brilliant. I think in truth, I have been envious of you, of your success, of your bravery. And now I simply cannot believe that a woman with such bravery loves me. How lucky I am to stand by your side and to soak up even a bit of your light. If my only purpose in life is to love a woman as great as you, then I will be a very fulfilled man indeed. I said, yes, Colin. This is what we've been waiting on, Colin, for you to just let it go. Yeah, she's whistled down. Yeah, she told you a little story. Yeah, she let you know that the girl was pregnant with the baby and she was tricking you, but it wasn't that deep. Yeah, she called you out on not being your true self when you came back because you weren't. And here she is, and you love her. And she says, I love you. You are a good man, Mr. Bridgerton. And he says, I love you. Now, will you please do me the honor of joining me on the dance floor, Ms. Bridgerton? Finally, we see the love, the adoration, the happiness as these two take to the floor. And we also see Lady Bridgerton enjoying her dance with Lord Anderson. Eloise asks Francesca if she can join her in Scotland. She wants to see the world. She wants life experiences. But Francesca and John are, going far away. And she says, yeah, you could come. John's excited. Francesca's excited. Then John's cousin arrives. She's introduced to Francesca and Eloise, and we see something peculiar happen. After the introduction of Michaela Sterling, Francesca can't even get her name out right. She looks legitimately flustered. And I said, oh, Lord. Her mother said this is what happened to her, that she got flustered, that she was so taken with Edmund that she couldn't get her name right. And here we have Francesca so taken with Michaela that she can't get her name right. We just saw the same thing happen with Violet. And we heard it happen with the mom and dad, which means something may be going down later on with her and the cousin. I said, I hope the girl don't cheat. Or I hope she's not unhappy with her decision and she wants an annulment. But I guess we'll see. We then hear. Oh. Went down the wrong tube, y'all. Dearest gentle reader, I find myself suddenly at a loss for words. My reticence is not due to a desire to protect any risky couplings. We see Penelope and Colin making love. Though I have heard whispers of a few, my restraint comes from a place of joy to all those who feel they have been wronged by this humble writer. My sincere apologies. I wish you only the best. And we see Cressida in a carriage leaving with her aunt. It's a wrap for her. It's time to go. And Benedict is sad that Eloise is going away. But she tells him to cheer up because she'll be back next season. And she says, do you think my mom will ever let me miss a ball? And that has me wondering because he's standing there looking like if she's going to find somebody next season or he is. Which one are we on to next? Because we're jumping letters because Eloise still hasn't found anybody. F found somebody. Benedict hasn't found anyone, so I'm assuming he's going to be coming up soon, okay? If you know, put it down below. Lady Whistledown continues. It is time now to look forward to the future, whatever it may bring. This author knows better than to make any predictions about what future may hold. We see the family outside saying goodbye to Francesca and the crew. Lady Whistledown continues, but with every closing chapter, the story is sure to grow richer and deeper. It has been quite a journey we have taken together, and so it is with heaviest heart that I write this final, unbelievably short sentence as Lady Whistledown. Goodbye. It is a short time later, and we see that there are two baby girls and a baby boy laying down. And it doesn't shock me at all once we see the various Featheringtons picking up their kids. We learn that all three of the Featherington sisters are now moms, but Penelope is the one that had the boy, which means he's going to be the one with the Featherington title. Colin is a successful writer now. thanks to the help of Penelope, and he has published a book with some of his writings of travel. We then hear, and with the retirement of my literary persona, I should like to formally introduce myself. Previous wallflower, current columnist, observer, wielder of a quill. Nobody unique, and yet I have my moments. And then Penelope's voice comes in to finish. And hopefully, dear reader, you will stay on to enjoy them with me as we begin this next part of our journey. Yours truly, Penelope Bridgerton. And then we see one last kiss, and that is the end. I know. I can't believe it's over. And I took so long to do it. So sorry for you that were waiting on this. But that's the end. And overall, I thought that this was a good season, but I gotta be honest in saying that I felt it was rushed. I did. I felt like because there were so many different storylines and because they only had 8 episodes, that some parts of this were rushed, and I would have loved to see more development of their various courtships and relationships, but I understand why it was done that way. I will be doing the Queen next. I'm going to try to have something out within the next 2 weeks. It's a really, really hectic couple weekends for me. And I normally do most of my recording then, but I'm going to try to get something out in the next 2 weeks, 3 tops. Thank you all so much. Let me know what you thought of this episode and the series overall. Out of all the series, if you've watched all of them, what do you number this one as? And include the Queen in that number. Until next time.